Cherry Bombs.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Very happy to have you. I'm good. This is my first big show back since the whole pandemic. So, it's like riding a bike, I guess.
Kinda, yeah, right?
Yeah. I already had somebody try to have awkward talk with me outside, and I already had a security guard aggressively ask me what I'm doing here. So I'm back
right
in the
back
rhythm.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in it.
right.
How about yourself? Because you've been back out for a minute now.
Yeah. Right now it just feels real natural. It feels, again, right back where it used to be. I will say our first time going back out, though, it felt like we were doing something we weren't supposed to be doing.
Right.
I felt like I was about to get in trouble. And it felt so awkward at first, just getting ready for the show. And then during the show, it was like, oh, my God, I missed this so much.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we all just cried. And I don't know if you've been interviewing artists and they've all kind of had a similar feeling, but at the end, you just cry and break down. It's so emotional. You didn't realize how much this meant to you and you missed it until you did it again. You're like, oh, man.
Even doing it on this side, I mean, as much as for a while it was like, oh, you got to go and you got to get your credentialing, you got to do this and blah, 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 and just waiting in line, whatever. Today, just being here this morning, I was just like, oh, my God, I loved parking. You know, it's just like, I'm parking at a festival. This is great.
Exactly.
Like,
Even take COVID test. Yes, I will take this COVID test.
too.
Put this up my nose. Yes, let's go. Let's do it.
For sure. And it's nice because, you definitely, like anything, like away from it, and absence makes the heart grow fonder. And you really appreciate how awesome it is what we get to do and how killer this whole culture is, and seeing smiles on people's faces.
Oh, everybody's happy.
It's awesome.
Even the people that aren't typically happy are happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is also my first time in this venue in Bank of California, which is huge and nice and sort of fancy.
Gorgeous.
How do you, doing what you do, sort of calibrate or adapt when you're playing a venue this size, which is about as big as it gets,
Right.
versus doing a club, a theater,
Sure.
the other stuff you've done?
Yeah. No, really. This venue is massive. It is huge. So really, the imagination can go wild here, which is what I love. It's so much fun. So we really try and think of ways to fill up this massive stage. It's about 60 feet wide. And so you want to create things that fill it nicely, that give it a nice aesthetic. So not too small of things, which means everything has to be bigger, including the fire, including the aerial. It has to be higher, right? We have 50-foot rig points here. So the girls, they're going to be really high up there. It's amazing.
And just to give us an idea, how much higher is that than normal?
Typically, like in an indoor theater, like a House of Blues mid-range type theater size-wise, you're looking at about 20 feet, so about half of that.
Yikes.
25 feet maybe.
Which is already, for me, 10 feet for me would be like,
Yeah, me too.
So.
I'm afraid of heights. Like, I don't
Me
do that.
too.
I was like, yeah, girl, you get, I'm going to stay down here. You look good.
You're doing great.
Yeah. But they love it. The more height that they can get, the better. So they're just having a blast with this. And same with the fire. We can go real big because it's an outdoor venue. And
you can do fire here without having a bunch of like very nervous venue staff on the side of the stage.
Yeah, we did our walkthrough with the fire marshal yesterday. All's good to go. And we're stoked, man. I'm so excited. We got a big surprise at the end of the show.
Ooh.
That is very big.
I like
so
big
I'm stoked
surprises.
for that.
When you see a stage this size, like you mentioned, like the square footage, even like it makes you realize, like, oh, all those old videos I watched of Bruce Dickinson and Axl Rose and all these people like running back and forth across the stage. It's like, oh yeah, it's because it's massive.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You really got to fill that up.
You do, and we have to coordinate like our choreography and our routines to account for that. We have to take some extra music so you can get halfway across stage because you're going really far instead of like in a theater. And in that light too, I get to bring in more performers. So there's 9 of us here. So that's a big troop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Slipknot size. So
well, I'm like 9. Where have I heard that number before?
Yeah, so there's 9 of us. And we typically don't do a show with that many, but because it's such a big stage, we can.
Yeah, that's killer. So I'm looking forward to whatever that surprise is, which everybody watching this is going to know, maybe even before I do. So this is, for a lot of the band people I've run into today, it's like, oh, this is the last day, packing up, about to go home. what happens next from here? What's on your agenda?
From here, we'll go back to Vegas and we will start rehearsing for our first ever headlining run.
Damn.
Yeah, that will take place in January. So, no rest for us. We go right into the studio again and start creating hour-and-a-half show, and how all that's going to flow. So.
Wow. So that headlining run will be a totally different show than what people are going to see today, and or somewhat.
It will be a different show than what people see today, but there will be elements of today's show in that one. Yeah. Our headlining run has a storyline, and it's a whole very theatrical kind of immersive thing from beginning to end. This one is more of a piece, kind of similar to like what a band is with just songs. There's no correlating thing that goes throughout.
Like this is like a greatest hits, and then the headlining's like a concept album. Yeah. And then we'll route from Vegas to Texas to head off to Shiprock. Oh, rad.
So we'll be on there in January.
Yeah, I like to think about how stand-up comedians, like some of them, they know people want to hear certain bits, and they sort of always do them, and then there's like comics who throw out the whole hour and do a whole new hour, and then there's people like Seinfeld who will do like 30%'s new, and it kind of recycles to where it's all new. So it sounds like you're more in that like. Yeah,
it's not very different than like what a band does, right? So they have their albums and their hits from each album, and then they kind of replay those throughout the years, and then they touch on some old favorites, and then maybe they bring some new stuff in, and then if they have new material, they work that in too. That's kind of what we do. So we have some oldies but goodies, but we have a lot of new stuff as well.
So when I think about these bands, obviously it's our biggest reference point, right? Before shows, doing vocal warm-ups, or maybe stretching, or maybe like warming up their hands and that sort of stuff. What do you do? What does your troupe do on the road to like, get ready and to be?
Well, a lot of the girls are very healthy, so they're very conscious. They have to warm their bodies up, right? Just like drummers and singers and everything else. So the girls are warming up, they're stretching, they're getting ready for all the movements that they're going to have to do. They do their last minute safety checks on things like the rigging and the fire, and they're fueling the props and getting those set and ready. The wardrobe is a massive part of our show. So they're setting wardrobe where it needs to be, stage left, stage right. They're mapping out how they're coming on and going off. Because every venue that we go in is different. So that kind of changes our show from show to show too, and how that's going to flow. So we make sure we mark through it, and we're all good to go there. And we, come together and we just psych ourselves out, and we just get ready to rock.
That's awesome. And it's something that I think we as the audience don't often think about. And I would imagine even more so than with a lot of bands. Your day is, you're working all day.
All day.
It's not just the time on stage. It's everything before and after.
Right. Yeah. Really, traditionally, until maybe the last year, we didn't have a crew. So we load everything in. We set it all up ourselves. We rig ourselves. We do everything, and then we load everything out at the end of the night too. So it's a lot of work. The girls are really busting their ass all day. And so here, luckily, we're able to have a couple crew members to help out with that sort of thing. But yeah, absolutely, it's an all-day affair. And not to mention, running through with fire marshal and getting approved for permits and things like that. Yeah, so it's pretty intense, but it's all worth it.
And the fire marshals that are always, some probably more skeptical than others, I would imagine. Like,
Some, most, once they see our system and how we do things, and I explain it to them, they're like, oh, yeah, these girls know what they're doing. Some like to quiz me and test my knowledge on things, which I'm totally cool with, totally fine. They're like, well, what kind of wardrobe are you wearing? Like, what is it made out of? And then I'm like, well, it's natural fibers, but it's not a lot of wardrobe.
It's all made out of paper and dry leaves.
Yes, and kindling and
kindling. Accelerant.
Sawdust. So there's sometimes they like to put you through the ringer, and I appreciate that because we can't have amateurs out there doing this. So I welcome it. I love a challenge, and I always make sure I get their business cards. So next time we come to town, it's not so rigorous.
Nice. Yeah.
And we say, hey, we're the Cherry Bombs. We're back. And then they're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. We know you. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, we have a pretty good reputation, and I like to keep that up. So
that's awesome. I love that. And let that be a lesson to all of us.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for hanging with us back here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for today. Indeed. And thanks all of you.
Cheers. Knotfest.com. Stay tuned to us on Twitch.